I stood tall at the helm of my ship, the wind whipping through my hair as we sailed through the tumultuous waters of the Atlantic. My name is Benjamin Freeman, a black man in a time when freedom and equality seemed like distant dreams for people like me. But here I was, defying the odds, serving as a naval captain during the American Revolution. The path I had taken to reach this position was fraught with discrimination and trials, but my determination burned brighter than any adversary I faced. This is my story. Born into slavery, my earliest memories were of toiling in the fields under the scorching sun. Yet there was always a spark within me that refused to be extinguished. My love for the sea grew with every stolen moment I spent near the water. I found solace and freedom in its vastness, imagining a life beyond the chains that bound me. When news of the Revolutionary War reached the plantation where I toiled, it was as if a door cracked open, beckoning me to step into the unknown. I yearned to fight for the cause of liberty and justice, not only for myself, but for all those who suffered beneath the weight of oppression. With a heart full of resolve, I escaped the plantation and made my way to a nearby port. As I approached the Naval Recruitment Office, hope and trepidation mingled within me. The war for independence had ignited a flicker of change in the hearts of some, but prejudice was deeply rooted, like a stubborn weed that refused to be uprooted. I was met with skeptical gazes and mocking whispers as I stood among the crowd of potential recruits. The newly formed Continental Army couldn't be picky, so they were taking everyone they could get their hands on to fill their ranks. But many believed that a black man could never lead, that I was meant to be a servant, not a captain. But I refused to let their doubts define me. I trained tirelessly, honing my skills in navigation and seamanship. I proved myself on every ship I served, earning the respect of some of my fellow sailors through my unwavering dedication and unwavering resolve. I knew that in order to overcome the discrimination I faced, I had to be twice as skilled, twice as knowledgeable, and twice as determined as anyone else. Sometimes even that was not enough for my fellow sailors. Finally, the day arrived when I was given command of my own ship, the Vengeance. Vengeance was a seventh-rate brig. It was a humble vessel. Though small and nimble, the armament left much to be desired with 18 6-pounder Armstrong guns. But it carried the dreams of freedom and equality that burned within me. Half of my crew didn't really trust me or know why they were under the command of a black man. But their want and need for freedom from under the British Empire's tea and taxes was so strong that they mumbled and groaned about my command, but didn't cause trouble. It was good enough for me, so we set sail to join the fight for independence. On the high seas, we battled not only enemy ships, but also the prejudice that followed us wherever we went. I faced hostility from fellow captains and doubters who believed a black man had no place in a position of leadership. But with each victory we achieved, my stature grew, and the seeds of change began to take root. I made it my mission to prove that character and ability knew no color. I mentored young sailors, black and white alike, fostering a spirit of camaraderie and unity among my crew. Together, we defied expectations, proving that strength and leadership could be found in the hearts of all men, regardless of their race. One of my first missions as captain was to escort the crew of the USS Earlston, a voyage that took 2 weeks with coverage and assistance of the French. However, the British ended up intercepting us when we're nearly home. The HMS Alderney and the HMS Oakwood were smaller vessels, but of course in the distance was 2 other larger ships that would wipe the Vengeance and Earlston off the map. With my command, I ordered the Earlston to make a break for it by flagged signals while me and my crew held off the other 2. The Alderney had the first shots off. None struck us as we gotten close to unload our own broadside. Claiming the first hit upon the smaller vessel. Not too long, it rocked our starboard side with its own shots damaging our boat, but losing none of our crew members. We returned fire to their port side, clearly putting holes through the boat and killing a portion of their crew. though the Earlston was right in their firing range. In a fit of revenge, they decided to attack the ship defended by only a few rifles, if you can even call that a defense in this situation. Lucky for them that the enemy was so rattled by our presence that they couldn't land any hits. It was not long before another broadside struck our stern, tearing through some of my men on the upper deck. A young lad named Kane had found himself struck by splintered wood. Even though wounded, the boy didn't yell in pain even as his eyes deceived his true thoughts. He stood and once again went back to loading the 6-pounders. That was when I realized that the HMS Oakwood was pushing to join us in battle, even launching a deadly but unsuccessful barrage around us where most struck into the water with few hits into the much denser front of our Vengeance. Though that was a mere distraction as they went straight for the slower and vulnerable Earlston. I remember hearing the sounds of small arms fire mixed with the combination of screams and thinking that the Earlston was done for. They took many casualties for what I believe was my lack of insight, or maybe the lack of pace that such a transport-like vessel like the Earlston could really do even with favorable winds. That was when we turned our attention to support the Earlston as much as we could. We had to get out of there as soon as possible. Those larger ships were growing ever closer to joining the battle. Nearing our exit point, the HMS Alderney attempted to stop our advance, but we responded with another broadside from our port side. Even with 2 cannons knocked out, we managed to critically wound the HMS Alderney and sink that vessel to the seafloor of the strait. With that ship out of the way, we were able to escape. Both the Earlston and the Vengeance sustained damage. Nothing too critical, but 36 men altogether had suffered from the cruelty of war. Defending as one armed ship against 2 armed ships was bound to bring death, a hill I would happily die on. Anyone that thought otherwise is a damn fool. June 17, 1775, the Battle of Bunker Hill. After my first mission, Congress had sent me a letter. It was about Bunker Hill. The British had moved on to the Boston harbor with a strong blockade. Their ships opened up with their cannons erupting onto Boston and surrounding positions. Forces had retreated backwards outside of the city and hopefully outside of the range of the British cannons, though given the option to assist with the Continental Forces' tactical retreat. My pride had become a strong factor to show my skills of command to a broader grouping, and we took to forming a regiment of Marines and joining the Battle of Bunker Hill, knowing well that I could be killed by so much as stray shrapnel. However, I was determined to prove myself. It was around 3,000 of us. Untrained militia against seasoned soldiers who probably had experience around the world thanks to the British Empire's expansion and multiple wars they had undertaken. Even the home court advantage was taken away, but we hunkered down and prepared ourselves for a battle of our lives. To the farmost front amongst the hill, we set up with majority of our forces and 2 gun positions, with reinforcements positioned onto the back. I was in the midst of it all, directing troops that saw and questioned my command, but they couldn't deny the ranking even as fellow commanding officers seen it as no use to question when a battle was right on top of us, seeing how the Redcoats pushed the 5th Foot regiments to the front and to the sides. I had the 10th Militia Regiment and supporting artillery to engage the left side. Further back was another position assaulted by the British 4th Foot and 4th Grenadiers regiments. They were fierce even against overwhelming odds. This was a show that numbers could only hold the advantage for so long. It was a bloodbath to hold that line. Amongst the area that we called the fence, multiple militia regiments battled the more seasoned British 4th Regiments. It was when a carrier had informed me that Officer Cadet Gerard Ellis was killed in action. Gerard was the first to welcome me as a fellow officer. He commanded the 24th Massachusetts Regiment. The man encouraged his troops to hold their ground gracefully, but with their officer dead, it took a huge shock on their morale. That also threw those front lines into a frenzy, where no one knew where it was drawn. Though for now, the British owned that area. Having pushed down from their defensive positions on the hill, the 9th and 10th Massachusetts Militia Regiments were engaging both the British 63rd Foot and 63rd Grenadiers and their artillery support with the militia's own artillery support. To the front, the 22nd Massachusetts, 9th Massachusetts, 1st New Hampshire, and 2 of their artillery support had hunkered down in a fight against the British 5th Foot, 43rd Foot, 1st Royal Marine Regiments, with the 65th Regiments landing by rowboats to assist and reinforce that front line. We did not know how long that would hold. We did not even know if we could hold this hill until the enemy forces on the left were cleared up. We were running low on ammo, and supplies had yet to even get close enough for ammunition to be ran to the needed forces. Close quarters combat had now started, and more word of Officer Cadet William Prescott being injured. I wasn't too concerned about him since he showed his dislike for me from the beginning, but I couldn't doubt that the man was a hard-ass that stood his ground against the British and wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty, that he had my respect on. Before any one of us knew it, the front line had begun to show the cracks. Many were starting to rout and flee from the line, either to shake off the fear of nearly dying, or seeing their friends die, or exhaustion. Whatever it was, it allowed the British the gap in our lines where they could overrun us. Thank God for the boys of the 22nd Massachusetts Regiment. They held the right side against overwhelming odds. Me and my crew had pushed up to try to form some sort of resistance, but with only 41 of us against the hundreds, it was clearly suicide. I ordered a tactical retreat, and though being chased down, we suffered a barrage of bullets. I watched as Kane, the young lad from Early, shrug off a round to his shoulder that skinned a decent chunk from him. By some godly influenced blessing, he had continued to press on.
Haha, Captain, you look like you've seen a ghost.
He was right, and for such a young lad to laugh while being wounded and in high spirits while we are engaging enemy combatants seeking to eliminate or imprison us, makes me feel glad that he was on our side. When all was said and done, we managed to reignite our front line and regain positioning. It was also the same time that our forces launched their counterattack to retake the fence with success, having routed many units. At the end of the battle, many had laid amongst the ground, bodies ravaged by cannon shot, bullets, and infection that gotten into their wounds. We had lost a total of 1,731 men, and they had lost 1,973 men. though a victory for us, not one that I looked favorably upon. However, a win is a win, but how many of these close call wins can we actually sustain?
With the form of a